Listen closely. We don't have much time. The situation is dawai. Every second counts, so pay attention and follow my instructions precisely.
I'm 85 years old, and I've come to realize something about my life that I never understood until very recently. I spent so many years chasing things I thought mattered, titles, recognition, the kind of success that everyone talks about. But none of it ever quieted the loneliness I carried inside me. It's a silence that followed me even when I was surrounded by people, even when I had a full calendar, even when my bank account was larger than I could have imagined when I was young. I live alone now. My home is quiet in a way that feels permanent, like the walls themselves are aware that most of the voices I cared about are gone. I talk to myself sometimes, not in a desperate way, but just to fill the space that others once did. There's no shame in admitting that. The truth is heavier than any pride I ever had. I remember sitting at my desk in my 40s, looking out over the city skyline from the office I had worked so hard to reach. I had meetings back to back, calls that ran into dinner and travel schedules that left my suitcases permanently in the hall. People called me accomplished, respected. I didn't feel it. I was tired, always tired, and yet I told myself I was exactly where I should be. It was only much later I understood that I was alone even then. When I was in my 20s, I thought life would give me time. I thought I had decades to figure things out, to mend relationships, to be present in ways that mattered. I was eager to work, to prove myself, to build something lasting. I believed that if I was busy enough, if I earned enough, if I was admired enough, I could avoid the quiet gnawing I sometimes felt but didn't name. It was only much later that I realized that the quiet never goes away. It waits, patient, until everything else has faded. I remember the first time I felt the subtle weight of what I was missing. My best friend from college called me one Sunday afternoon. She was in town for a few days. I had back-to-back meetings and a dinner with clients, so I told her I couldn't meet. "Maybe next week," I said, though I already knew next week would be the same. That was decades ago. She passed away 2 years later, and I never got another chance to see her. The memory of her voice on the phone, disappointed but understanding, comes back to me now, and it is a quiet ache I carry every day. I spent my 30s and 40s climbing. I changed jobs, moved cities, traveled for conferences. Every step felt like progress. I told myself I was building security, stability, a future where I wouldn't have to worry. I told myself that my parents, siblings, and friends would understand. I told myself that love would wait until the right moment. But the right moment never arrived, because I was too busy chasing an idea of life that looked impressive from the outside. My marriage suffered in ways I didn't notice until it was too late. My wife, patient and kind, tried to reach me through late nights, through dinners alone, through quiet comments that I brushed off. I thought she would understand, that she would see I was working for both of us. But what I didn't see was that I was building walls around us, slowly, imperceptibly, until we were separate people living under the same roof. By the time I realized it, she had already started drifting away. I didn't notice the small cracks, the missed conversations, the forgotten birthdays, the times I promised and didn't follow through, because I was focused on the wrong kind of growth. I remember missing my daughter's first recital because I was presenting at a conference. I remember promising my son I'd be there for his first soccer game, then sending someone else in my place. Each time I rationalized it. "It's important for the future," I said. "I'm providing for them, they'll understand." But they didn't understand, they still don't. And the sad part is I thought I had more time to make it right. The truth is, the damage wasn't sudden. It wasn't a single moment that broke my relationships or left me feeling empty. It was a slow erosion, day by day, choice by choice. Small decisions that seemed harmless then, like staying late at the office or skipping a weekend dinner, accumulated into years of absence. The quiet gnawed at me even when I pretended to be busy and important. I remember a Sunday afternoon when I was 50. I sat in my living room, exhausted from travel, papers scattered around me, and I realized my house was empty. My wife had left for a few hours to visit her sister, and my children were with friends. I looked around and felt the hollowness of it all, but I told myself it didn't matter. I had work to do. I had deadlines to meet. And yet in that silence, I felt a flicker of recognition that something precious was slipping away, something that no promotion, no award, no recognition could ever replace. I ignored it. I had meetings the next day. I can see now how much of my life I traded for the idea of success. I thought I could have both love and recognition, but the balance was never real. Every choice to put work first, to stay busy, to chase approval, was also a choice to be absent. I didn't notice it at the time because loneliness disguises itself. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It seeps in slowly until one day you wake up and realize it has been living with you all along. There were moments that should have been joy, that should have been shared, and I was never fully present. I remember my father's funeral. I was there, but I was thinking about the next meeting, about the things left undone. I remember my mother's hospital visits, her voice frail, asking me simple questions, wanting nothing but my attention. I answered in fragments, distracted, and thought I was doing enough. I was. I couldn't have been further from enough. It wasn't until I lost my wife 10 years ago that clarity hit me. She had been patient for decades, bearing the weight of my absence, loving me in ways I scarcely noticed. Her death was quiet, gentle, but it left me with a vacuum that no one could fill. That was when I realized something I had never admitted even to myself. Success, however defined, never quieted the loneliness that had grown inside me. It never replaced the warmth of human presence, the simple acts of listening, sharing, existing together. If I could go back, I would tell my younger self that the hours spent chasing recognition are hours that never come back. I would tell him that the applause of strangers cannot replace the soft approval of a friend, a spouse, or a child. I would tell him that work is not life, and that life is measured in the quiet, ordinary moments that pass unnoticed until they are gone. And yet, it's not all despair. I am grateful for the life I had, for the people who loved me despite my absence, for the small kindnesses I received along the way. But gratitude is mixed with sorrow because I know what is gone forever. My children are adults now, living their own lives. They forgive, I think, but the intimacy of their youth with me cannot be reclaimed. My friends have passed. My parents are gone. My wife is gone. Time has taken them, and nothing can bring them back. If you are willing, I ask you to listen to this not as a lesson to follow, but as a truth from someone who lived it. Life is quieter than we expect, and the things we chase often do not fill the hollows we carry. Presence matters. Time matters. And most of all, people matter in ways that nothing else can. I am 85. My body reminds me that I do not have decades left. My mind reminds me that I cannot rewrite the past. My heart carries both love and regret in equal measure. And so I sit here speaking to you because it is the only way to release some of the weight. Because words, even now, are all I have to reach beyond the silence. I remember mornings in my 50s, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold, staring out the window at the street below. I would see neighbors walking their dogs, children laughing as they waited for the school bus, couples holding hands. I felt a pang of something I couldn't name then, a quiet longing, but I told myself I was busy. I had calls to make, presentations to prepare, reports to finalize. I convinced myself that my time would come to notice these things, that I would have space for life later. Later never came in the way I imagined. Weekends were the hardest. I would travel for work, attend functions, entertain clients, and when I returned home, the house was silent. My children had grown used to my absence. Birthdays, school plays, family dinners, they became milestones I missed, one after the other, until their faces were strangers in photographs. My wife, always patient, would ask how my day went, what I had learned, and I would respond with fragments of stories, proud yet hollow. She asked for connection, for shared life, and I gave her schedules and lists. I thought I was providing. I was failing. In my 60s, my health started to show the cost of years spent prioritizing work over self and family. I felt a constant ache in my back, my knees, my chest sometimes. The doctors said it was age catching up with me, and I nodded because it was easier than facing the deeper ache inside. I began to notice the absence of certain people more acutely. The friends who stopped calling, the colleagues who retired or moved on, the quiet spaces in my home that used to be filled with laughter. Success hadn't filled them, not one bit. I remember one evening in particular. I had just returned from a conference in another city. My daughter called to tell me she had won an award at school, something I would have celebrated if I had been there. I congratulated her over the phone, but I could hear the disappointment beneath her words. She wanted me to be there, and I was. I didn't realize at the time how many of these moments I had traded for meetings, travel, and client dinners. I told myself I was building a future for them, that it was for their good. Now I know it was mostly for mine, my need to be seen, my need to feel accomplished. The slow cost of all this absence only became undeniable when my wife passed away. I remember sitting in the living room, the house echoing her absence, realizing that the life we had imagined together, the quiet evenings, the small rituals, the shared stories, was gone forever. My children lived in other cities, busy with their own lives, and I couldn't call them back to relive the moments I had missed. The realization hit me like a weight pressing down, slow and crushing. Success, accolades, all the things I had collected meant nothing in the face of that quiet emptiness. I've thought often about why I stayed so committed to achievement, why I refused to slow down, to be present, to cherish what was right in front of me. I think it was fear, the fear of being ordinary, the fear of being forgotten, the fear that life would pass me by unnoticed. And yet in the end, life passed me by unnoticed in a different way. It was the people closest to me who were gone, the moments that mattered that slipped through my fingers while I chased recognition. I talk to my children now, but it is different. There's a distance that wasn't there before, a quiet recognition that some things cannot be returned. I am not bitter, but I am aware. I remember my daughter telling me once years ago that she wished I had been more present, that she wanted me at her side during the small but important moments. I had nodded, distracted, and promised I would try harder. I didn't. And now, even with time, I can only listen and remember. My friends, too, are mostly gone. There were gatherings I skipped, reunions I postponed, conversations I deferred. I thought there would always be more time. But time, of course, does not wait. People pass quietly, their absence settling into the corners of your life like dust. I walk through my neighborhood now, seeing familiar faces that are gone, remembering laughter and arguments and late-night talks that I didn't appreciate until they were memories. Even the successes that once felt so critical, promotions, awards, recognition, carry a hollow ring now. They are artifacts of a life spent looking outward rather than inward, at accomplishments rather than connections. They remind me of what I chased and what I left behind. I used to think that being successful would fill the quiet, would give my life weight, would keep loneliness at bay. I was wrong. I understand now that nothing external can fill the spaces left by absence, by unattended relationships, by time taken for granted. I've come to accept that some things can't be fixed. The conversations I delayed, the birthdays I missed, the small moments I ignored, those are gone. My children have lives of their own. My friends are memories. My wife is forever absent. I cannot go back. I cannot redo the years. And the quiet that follows is relentless, a companion that cannot be distracted with meetings or applause or work. If I could speak to anyone younger than me, I would say this. Notice the people around you. Sit with them. Listen even when you feel busy. Attend the small moments. The achievements, the recognition, the material successes, they are fleeting. The connections you nurture, the presence you offer, that is what lasts. And it isn't flashy. It doesn't make headlines, but it is everything. I don't know how much time I have left. My body reminds me daily, and my mind sometimes falters. Yet I hold on to the memories that remain, the fragments of life that I didn't miss entirely. I talk to my children when I can, I remember my friends, I revisit old photographs. They bring a bittersweet comfort. But the weight of what is gone is a quiet, persistent truth. Even now, I sometimes catch myself preparing for a meeting that will never happen, thinking about a project that no longer exists, wondering if there's more I could be doing. And then I remind myself there is no more doing in the way I imagined. There is only being present, being aware, remembering. That is all I have left. If this has meant something to you, I hope you take it gently. There is no urgency in my voice, no demand. Only a quiet sharing from someone who has lived and lost and understood too late. I speak not to instruct, not to admonish, but to pass on a truth that time has etched into me with patient, unrelenting hands. I am 85. I live with the weight of my choices, the echo of what I missed, the quiet of rooms that once held voices. And I carry it all as honestly as I can, speaking to you because the silence is too heavy to bear alone. If nothing else, I hope it reaches someone who might hear it in time, who might notice what is right in front of them, before the quiet becomes permanent.